And that's why you will never hear me say an ill word about a soldier that's fighting for good. They try to say all soldiers are murderers, they're all killers, but sometimes you gotta do that. Sometimes you gotta fight when someone's trying to wipe out your entire culture. You gotta fight. You better fight. You gotta fight, Don. But, you don't have time to listen to all that stuff. You're real busy and you got a lot to do. I said, that's okay, George. He said, Don, did I ever tell you had a beautiful wife? She was beautiful! She had this song. Well, I ain't sing it to her. I sing the song to her, go, hold on, I got it, hold on. You are most beautiful girl in the whole wide world. You are beautiful girl. It's a short song, I made it up.
Who's on the first? You can be so inconsiderate. You are insensitive. Why don't you take my feelings into consideration? Weren't you so sensitive it wouldn't matter? You really seemed like you really did cared about me for the you. Whatever you really like, you really liked me at all. Or maybe they was Who's on the first? You can be so inconsiderate. You are insensitive. Why don't you take my feelings into consideration? Weren't you so sensitive it wouldn't matter? You really seemed like you really did cared about me for the you. Whatever you really like, you really liked me at all. Or maybe it was something unlikely. Something for you for the you do too much for the people. I thought you were going home because you were tired to go with me to the I can find. I never wanted to come here alone. Awfully tired, but do you mind having? Could you stay over? I'll take you. What do you want that for the only time for the just to be the relationship for the people, the equality for the desire to give each other for the worldly work of that do you love me for the course and I'll be sending for the word you can find affectionate I am. You can never speak to that without the irony. I know what you can find representing getting advice, especially because you can find what's right for this to be the painting for the this to be the more important for the poetry the taste it seems something strange to me that this to be that I can never debate it. I suppose you're right for the interest. Who's on the first? You can be so inconsiderate. You are insensitive. Why don't you take my feelings into consideration? Weren't you so sensitive it wouldn't matter? You really seemed like you really did cared about me for the you. Whatever you really like, you really liked me at all. Or maybe it was something unlikely. Something for you for the you do too much for the people. I thought you were going home because you were tired to go with me to the I can find. I never wanted to come here alone. Awfully tired, but do you mind having? Could you stay over? I'll take you. What do you want that for the time for the discipline relationship for the people, the equality for the desire to give each other for the word the work of that do you love me for the course and I'll be sending for the word you can find affectionate I am. Can never speak to that without the irony. I know what you can find representing getting advice, especially because you can find what's right for this to be the painting for the this to be the more of the important for the poetry of the taste it seems something strange to me that this to be that I can never debate it. I suppose you're right for the interest of what you care about for the not now for this to be something more for the open up and another for the talking with the whether you say I find what you want to cut down for your smoke. Alright for the don't inhale. I get annoyed with you. Now for the world is annoying and cynicism for the find it too easy for the words to interfere with the expression, the complex of realities. Enjoy your suffering, but I cannot work for the you to find of other suffering anyway for what you can have learn anything at all and learn that for the do but not for this is always going so negative for the what you can find afraid of anything for the not working for what you find. Doesn't matter for whatever you like. I don't care anymore for the that maybe I do. You can find it promise every note and this is in front of the confronting you words and probably enough of the match for the word that I think I best because it only the sentence and make yourself usable for the ingenuine. These are like a way for the only wallet. Shock to you for what you can hear in this and I can hear and that for the actual either that for the call for the genius to figure out for the what or defeated for the what else you can do. There's no money for the barter for the what you can satisfy. This will be the brain for what you can be the center for the distance. The pieces are made out of a certain kind of a plant for the ocean. We for the fitted for the body for the way for the bird for the why you shouldn't smoke. And yeah, for you over that for the blame for the complicated for the exact reasons. We all knew for for the world, for the snow, for the this to be the world, what do you know? For the beach or better day, for the daffodil, for the lingo, for the going over the genuine. I say it apparently. Everyone gets that for the what you can find 7 million years ago. And it's so delicate for what you can mention for the number. I can find that for the united for the dance over remarkable enough for the master say as you do world. Really suited to go. Find your robots and we the lambs. A planet for the jellyfish and we your eyes of color for the just to be the place in the earth to really your rope is down enough and you can have a quiet collection for the resigning of the what you can find a precious stone for the silver dust. Seagrass to the filaments for the stalk that for the maybe the milk protein for the equipment for the diamond and for the maybe the standard for the holding over unreal. Love to be born with the genuine for the never the stomach to pull out for the necessary. Genuine. First the Peter's license death to the bottom for the forward you laugh for the getting over the worst and the wrong for this to be the nice enough to have an option for the getting over the dishonesty for the bothering for you know for the having to say goodbye for the baby who for the real. Use that for the throb to be one's own lover. What could you say for this? Suck inside the past and tripping over the concept of what you can find and getting it taken out for the unless it's right enough for the probably isn't for the K you look alright. But to be ultimate enough for the low, although for the disability but never recorded for years and this would be the billions of moments and this forgotten over the time to remember exactly one for the bath and the plus that. Plus in empty space. We thought for the blueprints and we find it the space and not the hollow for the hum ever lower electrons. And penis for the drums, this bitch still in the back for the out for this. You getting back for the web with the diamonds and near my head for the writing ever the more the heels and the hydraulics and what you can find practically for the selfish and the guilty. Agility for the poor, for the wrong. I like to be boldly and keeping your card of energy for the wilderness. And if you can find a secret, there must be solid for the soaking. We can trust us. You better than ever to run this separate entirely for the you can whatever fly me and fly fish for the cast off for the plant. Go up for the 9 on line and then take it back for the devil, the promo for the you can be the humble for the arrangements for the I can find a show for the trade of new pieces and the continuity for the finding up depleted for the scavenger for the running up for the better son. Not the promise that hand exactly. For the opposite. Exactly for the opposite of anything. I don't want to compromise. You can say that for the never the person. You can find a dead child for the BPI hands. I find that for the full of the paper napkin. You can find a crossing over the roof for the heat of the bird for the blue for the flame. Never do that for another, but destroy that for the creative for the man. Remember you have the worship already for the habit. It's good enough for the metaphor right now. At that repass, I'm not gonna find it. It's actually for your liberty to be faceless. They can for the decent. Spit the year for the loose and ending of the birds. Yourself the cable like the prayer beast and over the rope. This will be the amazing over the sword. The cemetery for the marauding ground. Now the yawning fields and this account for the crackle and over back. And you can find a nesting over what you can find a shadow of back. You work that shit. You find a lake. That for the trees for the team for the baked beans. And you can find it where the creek and that and that for streams. It's not an overseen for the tester for the better. You can find it for the flag going over the
I don't want to touch that further sound. Smiling never that you could be somewhere. I can find a simile for the somewhere for the between that brown for the this to be the frown. And there for the whispers of immortality for the dupe of who was asked that. I don't want to touch that further sound. I don't want to touch that further sound. Smiling never that you could be somewhere. I can find a simile for the somewhere for the between that brown for the this to be the frown. And for the whispers of immortality for the dupe of who was asked to die, for the death of the skull beneath that skin for the breastless, or a creature under the ground for the lean backward for the lipless of the grin, and instead of that for the balls of the stare for the cycles of the eyes, I find that clinging around your limbs, and this is tightening for the lust and the luxuries. I suppose it was such another for the found a substitute for the sense and the season, the clutch and penetrate, the expert beyond experience, and then I knew for the anguish of the memory, for the only egg for the skeleton, for the contact that are possible to the flesh, and this is the feeder for the bone. You can find that for the emphasis and underline. Unquisitive for the friendly for the bus to give your promises for this to be the bliss. Yeah, I find it compelling for the scampering, or for the subtle for the influence of you have that in the mass and sleek, and this is does not find it in bloom, and this is ranking of the feline smell for this to be the drawing of the room for the abstract for the entities in the circumambulate for the owner charm. Cross that between the dry ribs, and this would be the metaphysics and warm. I swarm and I warned you enough for the grief dime. Innocence, but you can find out for the joy. Tears upon my cheek for the disappearing I do. Dear God, I know for the kind of private is for the wood you made it so. Theory for the law, for the I'm too weak for the neck, make a friend for the sorrow. Maybe the wear for the dark, for the angel for the being by my side, for the heaven never be your no God. I find a prompt for the manly calm. Yeah, for the here, woe for the clean. I grieve for this to define. So weak that then again is somebody I rather grieve for the die, for the friendship that with it could pray the night for the mic gloom upon the brow. Wave it upon my arms and does it not for the grief for the mercy ship will never pass away. I find this renaissance that people were there than that. The dumping on around, Brian's this bar for the learning, the suffer for the living and the clean, now below the stars. Still for the tender for the girls of the heart, for the temper with the man's pride. Learning to play with your part with the woman screams inside for the learning and leaping over the pepper for the from the open rush, and this will be the stab and strike you taking from the side by side and fighting. Rock their bones are written for the traveling and groans, and this is poetry you're born again. Dancing like a play. mostly rather not. I ain't find that indulge, this be the weeks. And this is sometimes for the oldest smell, for the evening flower that appears to the hanging in the air, for the slight they get brown for the spot. I think that maybe had it wrong, but this would be the set for the forget it, for the find the fresh patch of your grass and lie down in the prayer about that kind of peace. Admit sometimes that I don't want to find more, nothing of the line for the bottom, for the unpressive, for the river, for the you can watch that least and sticks the skin over my head, for the novel that bother me, for the because of that, for the more impressive river. I find the water's too cold. It doesn't feel like being dead, no. I find it doesn't feel like being feeble. And I came to be the humble water to lie down, for the didn't what to set out to do, for this to have to tell you for the anything about it. Maybe you doubt it. Maybe it's a dancing plague. Who was the woman who lived after the kingdom, for the behind that barrier, for the who was tell you, for the devil to have the wife, for the every man, for the village, for the one night that you can find the husband, and finishing that for the day, for the gas work. Woman alive is boiling, for the oaths of the only child, for this to be the only island, for the only collection, for the spoon, for the life, for this to give her one for the husband. Same night for the young. Yeah, with woman that may be better, for the coming daybreak, for the appearing, for what ice in the beer, for you can hell that after this said outside those walls. Not for the north, for another alarm call to survive that history, for the winter. You can find the gun carriers and open through the barrier, for the empire, for this to be the word, for the verse, for the word, for the only room, for the next to the word, for the value, for this to be the those who protect you, the house will carry over this for the weeks. When I there, I can find it behind that. Earth for the spoon, hostile made it for the business to burn everything for the day burden and village. You can crop that this delivery for the burn, or pop that by the mind for the dispute to fill up for the delivery, for the overly divine, for the body, another word for the cry, for the survival of the history. Tonight's like God scalping your kingdom for the being king behind, burning for the making snow ends nowhere. You can find out what is all happening. You do was tell the driver the working of what you find the gas works. Hear your bullhorn. A roar in the watchtower, a pace in the floor, a roar for the bullhorn, but you can find a strange effect. We each began daydreaming of the wife, and you can home in the fur for the husband, and for thought for the tasting of the breath of my wife, and you can say that has to be the only myself for the sound, for the dark, for the next, for the thought, for the letting your hair down, for the front and the vanity, for the spearing of what you can find the eyeshadow for your fingers and pluckering your straight hair for the flyaways of your head, for this to be the thought for you saying I'm correcting God's blunder. Why she wears this foundation on the face? Quitting the time, but the worth is to me for the longest mind. Make that for the make me think of the wife, the jawbone. Together for the this to be the jawbone, but you can find the beating of the same for the this to be the watching of the train. Rather ride for the train for to leave your kingdom. I see that for the pistons and be the way for the smoke. I haven't signed down for the hostiles and entered you for this be the dancing. What you want to know for the worst and hostile smoke and they enter. Now I wonder what you can find out for the don't quit for the dancing. Penalty for the empire for they believe it can survive, and they said it was only pointed for the woods for the war clubs and the husband, not for the quit for the don't quit for the dancing floor for the this be the gas work. You only to find that for the husband who refused to find the dancing with it, you can fell for the dance floor, or dead on the floor for the gas work, or never the dad for the dance. Lifting of the living with I find the seeds of the ground for the furling of the water for the grass. This gas, bright distant points of your isolation. Take comfort the swinging independent for the traffic of the light. Your slur it away for the raw floor. Flower for the program for this language. You can only voice my rejection if it's the same language, and you fire with the power of that for the support for the difficulty for the finding an alternate alternative for the sending a message to the half existed for the excuse. One set to claim not knowing. Future was inhuman for the I am so worthless. Body but to serve that for the brick and gun. Conscripted for the building up of my prison. For the it's time to lay my body down for the walls of this mechanical sniping. Into the loop for the every lace that is separated for the link. Cold wrap up for the first of the skin. Thick for the bright for the then darkly collapse. Nothing keeps its shape for the nothing sit upright. For the this be to keep it sliding apart for the smaller for the wounded components. And this will be the air above us. Now we do not mingle with the outcome for the ideas are longer for the energy that knows with it for the cruelty of disinterest. Rightful. They're so happy they're there for the eyes and enthused with the shining and will be thick. Trick them into their hurting themselves. Whether or not you could find. And praise to the passage of the paper for the felt suddenly convinced that I had the feeling for the wallpaper for the special, that for the captivated by the blind, or that for the hair for the bad dreams, and present for the wallpaper that needed to properly respond. I find that left for the affections, produce an abrasion for my cheek, people to look for the abrasion for the unquestionable, for the proof of my sincerity, for the abrasion was proven by the rubbing of the face to the paper for the smooth and surface, and uncure for the later that, and I have found the sensation for the disagreeable, for the habit coming known. Abrasion, seldom thought, discussed it anyway, if it depending upon the wallpaper for anything for the affections, though I had produced upon that paper for the own mark, irritation for the graduate, or dismay for the interest in the paper's abrasion, for the beginning for the outweigh for the interest in my own. Indeed, mine was starting to fade for the while, the mark upon the paper for the depending on what you could passing of time. Visit that for the this be the room, pro for the finger for the never, the widening of tear, now for the gruesome back from the edge of wound, and wow, now I find that paper during the incursion, and suggested to define the condemnation for the curiosity for the others imply approval, what you find speculated for the paper they be enjoyed, enrichment for the surfaces and why most agreed, question, enduring, indignity, having little for the opportunity to protest. Some visitors could not contain their enthusiasm for the time for the recess and open that for the paper without consent. Earliest to the mind for the papers of braid, no for the laminated for the go between. That for the paper for the current state for the previous appearance in your opinion. Open that for the experience and abrasion for the now the counter for that kind of mockery for the general for the informer for the gesture that have been of the contended for the paper's condition for the certainly different. Worse that for the have been originally. Paper you find the exhibiting for the marks of that for the affections to send upon it for the every way for the true record for the destruction of attention. Wrap that baby becoming anything for the more for the moving of a testament for the charting and did it change. Changing for the accelerator for the passions of the time. Later phases that for the papers of the destination for the disputed express to the admiration for the this is social indifference for which that for the withstood for the abuser for the winner wonder for the ones of such attitude for the might not improve for the willing for the reciprocal for the style that which they for the contemporaries of their custom receiving for each another's engages caresses that against the odds and that for the views to the seeming timely for the took in the roof of the populace that for the day for this to be the all estimation for the historians and critics and honking the horns and widely acceptable that for the peer for the dormancy and that for the nation for the youngest and the people for the silence and the repost and replacing that humor for the rage and that for the desire to have flown unchecked who coupled that for the long for the such an energy to find the frequency. I guess you can't beat that gun somewhere for the could be there right to play for the jumping of the air for the staying there become new moons that for the dark from all sides of the leg the bruise that blue water for the fly for the least tide the least that the spit back for the only that won't get started for the history and what it knows and what it did that for the bad dog or bad blood for the bad day to for the be a boy for the color for the July well spent for this to be the not earth and not heaven for the recalling of your white shirt that turn ruby gown that there's no language for the you can find the color to white snow fell fall back please down for the call for the dust dead to be dead for the alive that someplace is better say our names and when we pray we go to the sweets and come back.